The text was meant for her best friend. Amira knew that the moment her thumb hit *send, and she watched the little bubble disappear into the digital void. She'd been half asleep, propped against her headboard with a face mask cracking along her cheekbones, her phone warm in her palm. She'd typed, "I love you, don't ever leave me." Sentimental, embarrassing, honestly. But Dara had just called crying about her ex again, and Amira, ever the soft-hearted one, had saved a new contact and sent the message without looking twice. Then her phone buzzed. "Who is this?" Amira frowned. She checked the contact she'd saved, Dara Cherry Blossom, and felt her stomach tilt sideways. She'd typed the wrong number, 1 digit off. She could see it now, the *4 where there should have been a *9. She typed back quickly, "Sorry, wrong number, my bad." 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. She expected, no worries, happens to everyone. What she got instead made her sit up straight, the face mask forgotten, the sleep gone from her eyes like it had never existed. "Say it again." Amira stared at those 3 words for a full 10 seconds. "Excuse me," she typed. "You heard me." She almost laughed. She almost put her phone down. Almost. "I don't know you," she typed instead. "You said you loved me." "I said wrong number. That wasn't for you." And yet here we are. There was something in the rhythm of it, short, unhurried, like whoever was on the other end had all the time in the world and wasn't the least bit thrown. Most people would have said, "Haha, no worries," and moved on. This person was doing the opposite of moving on. "Okay, *, she typed, deciding she was done. "Good night." "Good night, Amira." She froze. Her name, she hadn't given her name. Heart slamming, she opened her contact details and felt a cold rush move through her chest. Her caller ID. She'd set her display name years ago, Amira J, *, and had never thought twice about it because she'd never thought a stranger would read it back to her like a quiet threat at 11:47 p.m. She locked her phone and told herself it was nothing. She told herself that for exactly 6 days. On the 7th day, she got a bouquet. Not from a florist with a bow and a card. Not delivered to her apartment door with a cheerful knock. It was sitting on the hood of her car in the parking garage of her office building, Nairobi black orchids, which weren't even sold * in Seoul, where she'd been living and working as a cultural liaison for a Nigerian trade firm for the past 2 years. The card was small, cream-colored, 1 line in both Hangul and English, the handwriting deliberate. "You still owe me those words in person." Amira looked around the garage, empty, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, her heels echoing and nothing else. She took the flowers inside and spent the next 3 hours pretending she wasn't shaken. Her colleague Jisoo watched her arrange them on her desk with narrowed eyes. "Black orchids," Jisoo said, in that particular Korean way of statting observations like questions. "Those are rare." "Wrong number," Amira said. Jisoo blinked. "Those are from a wrong number." "Apparently." "Amira," Jisoo lowered her voice. "Black orchids in Seoul only come from one place. There's a man, I don't know his real name, nobody does except the people closest to him, but on the street, in the *right circles," she paused, choosing her words like she was stepping across wet stones, "they call him Jin." The name landed softly, but the silence after it was loud. "What kind of man?" Amira asked, already not wanting to know. Jisoo didn't answer that directly. Instead she said, "The kind that doesn't send flowers unless he intends to collect." Amira changed her number that evening. It took Jin 48 hours to find the new one. This time no pleasantries, just running doesn't suit you. She was standing in her kitchen, a half-eaten bowl of jollof cooling beside her, when her phone buzzed and the world got noticeably smaller. "Leave me alone," she typed, hands steady, voice in her head not. "I would," he replied, "but you started this." A wrong text. "There are no accidents." Then, after a pause, "I want to meet you." "I'm not meeting you." "You will." Is that a threat? The 3 dots took longer this time. Long enough that she thought maybe, she'd finally said the right thing to end it. Then it's a promise. There's a difference, you'll learn mine. She put her phone face down on the counter and pressed her palms flat against the cold surface, breathing through her nose, the orchids still sitting dark and strange on her windowsill, catching the last light of the day. She should have thrown them out. She hadn't. That bothered her more than anything he'd said. The name Jin, it turned out, came with a file. Not a police file. Those were scrubbed so clean they were practically decorative. What Amira found came from somewhere more honest. A journalist friend named Kofi who worked Seoul's underground beat and had a habit of knowing things that made people uncomfortable. She called him at 7 a.m. He called her back at noon and opened with, "Where did you hear that name?" "Why?" "Because normal people don't hear it. That's the point." Amira sat in her car in the office parking garage, different level than before, like that would matter, and kept her voice even. "Kofi, tell me." He exhaled. She could hear him closing a door on his end. Jin is the head of the Haitian organization. Not a gang, not a crew, an asterisk organization. They run import logistics, private security, and about 6 other things that nobody can prove in court. He inherited it at 24 when his father had a very convenient stroke. A pause. He's never been arrested, never been photographed against his will. The few people who have tried to dig, another pause, this one heavier, they stopped digging. How old is he? 30. Why are you asking about his age? How does he look? Silence, then, Amira, why do you know this man? She told him about the text, about the orchids, about the new number that wasn't new anymore. When she finished, Kofi was quiet for so long she checked to see if the call had dropped. "He personally tracked your number," Kofi finally said. "Yes." "Jin, personally." "That's what I said." "Do you understand what that means? He doesn't do things personally. He has people for everything. His dry cleaning has a guy. His car has 3 guys. The fact that Kofi stopped, recalibrated. Amira, you need to be very careful. Not because he's dangerous, though he is, but because when a man like that gets interested, there's no such thing as walking away clean." She thanked him, hung up, sat in the concrete quiet. Then she picked up her phone and typed to Jin, "Stop contacting me or I go to the police." His response came in under 10 seconds. "With what?" She hated that he was right. The meeting, the one she'd sworn wouldn't happen, happened on a Thursday. She hadn't agreed to it. That was the thing she'd keep turning over afterward, examining from every angle like it might reveal something different each time. She hadn't agreed. She'd simply walked into the restaurant her firm used for client dinners, asked for the reservation under her company's name, and been led not to the usual table by the window, but to a private room in the back. By the time she registered the change, the door was already closing behind her. He stood when she entered. She hadn't expected that. She'd built Jin in her mind during the 7 days of silence and the 2 weeks of texts, cold, reptilian, the kind of man whose eyes gave nothing. What she hadn't built was asterisk this. The clean jaw, the dark eyes that moved across her face like they were reading something they'd been waiting to find. Tall in the way that didn't need to announce itself. A charcoal suit with no tie, the collar open just enough to seem intentional rather than careless. Amira stopped walking. "You look like you're calculating an exit," he said. His Korean carried a lilt she couldn't place, something northern, maybe worn smooth by years. His English, when he switched, was measured and precise. "There are 2. Neither is faster than me. Sit down, Amira." "You redirected my reservation." "I did." That's, she searched for the word, invasive. "You blocked 4 numbers and reported the orchids to building security." The ghost of something moved across his mouth, not quite a smile. "I adapted." She didn't sit, not yet. "What do you want?" He looked at her the way people look at something they've thought about for longer than was reasonable. Unhurried, unbothered by the weight of it. "I want to know why a woman sends 'I love you' to a stranger at midnight and then spends 2 weeks running from the consequences." It was a wrong number. There are no consequences. "Then why are you still thinking about it?" The accuracy of it hit her like a step she hadn't seen coming. She pulled out the chair across from him and sat, not because he'd told her to. She was clear on that. She sat because her legs made the decision before her pride could object. 5 minutes, she said. However long you need. He poured tea already on the table, already the right temperature, all of it arranged like he'd known exactly when she'd walk through that door. She noted that, filed it. How did you get my new number? She asked. I know a great many people. That's not an answer. It's the only one you're getting on that. He wrapped both hands around his cup. His fingers were, she wasn't going to think about his fingers. You work for Adami Trade Solutions. You've been in Seoul 2 years. Before that, Lagos. Before that, London for university. You speak 4 languages, including passable Mandarin. You live alone. You haven't been home to Nigeria in 8 months, and you send money to your mother every first of the month without fail. The air in the room changed temperature. You research me, she said, flat, dangerous in its flatness. I was curious. You investigated a private citizen because of a wrong text. I investigated someone who said they loved me. He met her eyes then, fully, for the first time, no deflection. I don't hear that often. I wanted to know what kind of person sends it into the dark without flinching. Amira stared at him. Something moved in her chest that she immediately evicted. And what kind of person do you think I am? He considered her like she was a question he was genuinely working through. Brave, he said finally, and lonelier than you let people see. The silence afterward was the most dangerous thing in the room. She left after 40 minutes, not 5. She didn't know what that meant, and she refused to examine it on the elevator ride down. She stepped out into the Seoul night, the street loud with Friday Eve traffic, her heartbeat doing something irregular and irritating. Her phone buzzed. Jin, same time next week. She should have said no. She typed it, no. He replied immediately. You stayed 40 minutes, Amira. You wanted to. Think about that. She stood on the pavement with the city folding around her and thought about it all the way home. She was still thinking about it when she walked into her apartment and found her front door already unlocked. She never forgot to lock her door. Amira didn't scream. That was the first thing she registered, her own silence, standing in the doorway of her apartment with her keys still in her hand and the lock that should have been locked, not locked. The second thing she registered was the light. Her lamp was on, the one in the corner by the bookshelf that she never used because the bulb had been blown for 3 weeks and she kept forgetting to replace it. It was on now, casting a warm amber pool across a man she'd never seen before, mid-40s, compact build, sitting in her reading chair with his ankles crossed like he owned every chair he'd ever occupied. He looked up when she stepped in. Close the door, he said in Korean. She didn't move. Miss Amira, he switched to English without blinking. I said close the door, the neighbors on your floor gossip. Something in his tone, not threatening exactly, more administrative asterisk, like he was processing an errand, made her step inside. The door clicked shut behind her. Her phone was in her hand before she'd made a conscious decision. If you're calling Jin, the man said, he already knows I'm here. Her thumb hovered. My name is Wu. I handle complications for the Haitian organization. He reached into his breast pocket, she tensed, every muscle in her body unanimous, and produced not a weapon but a photograph. He set it on her coffee table and turned it to face her. This is why I'm in your apartment. She crossed the room, because she had to know more than she was afraid. The photograph was of her, taken from a distance, outside her office building, 2 days ago by the look of her outfit. She was mid-stride, not looking at the camera. Beside her in the photo, circled in red ink, was a man she recognized from her office. Nam Chul, mid-level account manager. Quiet, forgettable in the particular way people choose to be forgettable. Your colleague, Wu said, works for a rival organization. He's been watching you since shortly after you first contacted Jin. The sentence rearranged the room. I didn't contact Jin. I sent a wrong text, yes. Wu nodded once. The wrong number that found the right phone. There are people who would call that unfortunate, My employer calls it fate. I call it a security situation. He retrieved the photograph and tucked it away. Nam Chul believes you are Jin's informant inside a Dami trade. Your firm moves significant import volumes. There are things inside those volumes that interest certain people. I'm not an informant. I didn't even know who Jin was 2 weeks ago. We know that. Nam Chul's organization does not. Wu stood, precise, economical movement, nothing wasted. You became visible the moment Jin became interested in you. That is not your fault. It is, however, your problem. So what? Jin sent you here to warn me. Wu looked at her with something that might have been sympathy if it weren't so controlled. Jin sent me here to move you. The words sat between them like something with weight. I'm not going anywhere, she said. Miss Amira. I don't know Jin. I don't work for Jin. I texted a wrong number. Her voice was steady, and she was proud of that, distantly, the way you're proud of things while a larger crisis occupies the foreground. I am not relocating my life because a man I had tea with once decided I'm part of his world. Wu studied her for a long moment. Then he did something that surprised her. He nodded, slow, almost respectful. I'll tell him. He moved toward the door and stopped with his hand on the frame. Change where you park. Vary the time you leave your office. Don't walk the same route twice in 1 week. He glanced back. And perhaps replace that bulb. A dark lamp suggests an empty apartment to people who look for such things. He left. The door closed softly. Amira stood in her own living room, feeling like a stranger in it. Then her phone rang. Jin. She answered before she could negotiate with herself about it. You're not leaving, he said. No greeting, like he'd expected Wu's report in real time. Correct. Stubborn. Alive and making my own decisions. Same thing. A beat. She heard something in the background, distant, urban. He was outside or near a window. Nam Chul won't touch you while you're visible to my people, but visibility has limits. I don't want your protection. What you want and what keeps you breathing are separate conversations. Jin, she sat on the edge of her sofa, pressed her free hand flat against her knee. Why does any of this matter to you? Genuinely, I'm no one to you. The silence before his answer was different from his usual silences, not calculated, more like something catching. You said you loved me, he said finally. To a wrong number. I know, another pause, softer than the last. It's been a long time since anyone said it, even by accident, even in the dark, even when they didn't mean it for me. His voice didn't change register, still even, still controlled, but something behind it shifted like weight redistributing. Go to sleep, Amira. I'll handle Nam Chul. He hung up. She sat with the dead call in her hand for a long time. She didn't sleep. She researched. By 3 a.m., she had pieced together what public record and Kofi's encrypted messages could offer about the Haitian organization. Built by Jin's father over 30 years, from a mid-tier import security firm into something that had its hands in port logistics, private intelligence, and the kind of international gray markets that never appeared on paper. When Jin took over, 6 years ago, 3 rival organizations had quietly dissolved within 18 months. No violence the papers could point to, just absence where there had been structure before. But it was the footnote in one of Kofi's older files that stopped her cold. Jin Soo-hyun, mother Park Myung deceased, father Jin Deho retired, one known sibling status unknown, notable, subject spent formative years outside Korea. Confirmed, Lagos, Nigeria, age 814. She read it twice. Lagos. She'd grown up in Lagos until she was 16. She sat back in her chair and looked at the ceiling of her apartment and felt the universe doing something she didn't have language for yet. Her phone buzzed, a message from a number she didn't recognize. Did you sleep? She knew exactly who it was. She typed back, you lived in Lagos. 3 dots. Then, I wondered when you'd find that. Why didn't you tell me? Because I wanted to see what you'd do with it when you did. She pressed her lips together. This isn't a game. No asterisk, he replied. It stopped being one when I saw your photograph and recognized your eyes. Her chest did the thing she'd been evicting all week, and this time it got through before she could stop it. "You knew me," she typed, fingers unsteady now. "Not new, remembered. There's a difference." She stared at those words until they blurred. "Meet me tomorrow," he sent. "Not a restaurant this time. Somewhere you choose, somewhere you feel safe." "Nowhere feels safe right now." Then asterisk he replied, "Let me change that." She should have said no. She looked at the photograph on her screen, the one Wu had shown her, her own oblivious face caught mid-stride, circled in red by people who saw her as a piece on someone else's board. She typed the name of a cafe in Mapogu, small, loud enough to disappear in, a place she loved precisely because nobody who mattered to her knew about it. 11 a.m., she sent. "I'll be there at 10:59, he replied. She finally slept, dreamlessly, which should have been peaceful. It wasn't. Because when she woke at 7 a.m., there was a message from Dara, the actual Dara, her actual best friend, that made her blood drop to somewhere below her feet. "Amira, call me now. Something happened at your office. It's about Nam Chul. They found him this morning."